welcome. I've just come out of the fog. I don't know if you agree, but I think the last few miserable days, last 2 miserable weeks really, have been reflected in what's going on in the world around us as well. I think just as we've lost sight of what's around us in nature, I think over the last couple of weeks we've also lost sight of each other, the ability to understand each other and to see things from somebody else's perspective. So if you'd like to follow me, we're just going to head on into the fog and down to Whitby and have a look at some of these issues that people have been getting so worked up about and seeing if we can't dispel some of the fog that surrounds us. Thank you. So this week's assembly comes from in front of the Captain Cook Monument, and you'll be all aware that there's been a lot of talk in the news this week about statues and who we choose to remember and how we remember them. And I think that one thing we really need to look at is that whole idea of who's important to us, who are our heroes, and are sometimes our heroes not always perfect, and does that matter? So we'll have a little look at that today. Started here in Whitby with Captain Cook. So very many people in Whitby and the surrounding area are obviously very, very proud of Captain Cook and his part in their history. And the statue here is to remember a man who was an amazing explorer, a fantastic leader, a map maker, somebody who led expeditions, the first expeditions from Europe to Australia, to New Zealand and to Hawaii, to go to places that people from Europe had never been to before. And there is lots of evidence that Captain Cook had a huge amount of respect for the people he met there, and in very many ways treated them kindly and fairly. On the other hand, there is also plenty of evidence that the expeditions that went to Australia and New Zealand led to terrible suffering for the Aborigine people and for the Maori people in New Zealand. And some estimates say that up to 90% of them died or were killed by diseases brought by the Europeans and due to the way that they were treated in the years, the decades, the centuries after Captain Cook arrived. So we need to understand that not everybody may see Captain Cook, the hero of Whitby, the same way as many of us do. And it's something that we just need to be aware of and to understand that people will have a different view. You'll probably be aware that there have been similar discussions over the last week or so about statues to Winston Churchill, for example. Somebody who many people see as one of our greatest heroes, somebody who helped Britain to stand almost alone at one point against Nazi Germany. On the other hand, there are many people who have a very different view of Churchill due to some of the things that he said about race or about women and the right to vote, for example. So again, the most important thing here is to listen to what other people have got to say. The other big issue, the one that really started all of this, was the statue in Bristol to Edward Colston. Somebody who on the one hand gave huge amounts of money about 300 years ago to Bristol to build schools and hospitals and for charities, but on the other hand made that money out of slavery. And it's estimated that tens of thousands of people died horrible, horrible deaths when they were being transported as slaves from West Africa. So again, there are two sides to this point of view, two different perspectives, and we need to listen to both of them and not get stuck in some kind of fog. One way that this is often spoken about is an echo chamber. You know that if you stand in a cave or an echoey place and shout, what you'll only hear is your own voice coming back to you. The same applies when we talk about understanding people who maybe have a different view to yourself. If you're just shouting, all you're hearing is yourself, and all the time you think that you are right. It is so important that we take the time to listen to what other people are saying, and maybe that will change our minds. Above all, I think that it's important that we question things. There is no problem having statues to people who we are proud of, but we shouldn't just accept that they were 100% absolutely perfect all the time. We always need to question, and sometimes we need to think again. I'm going to leave you with a final thought on this, but not in Whitby. We're going to head up Lythe Bank to Lythe Church. As we come out of lockdown, one big advantage for me is that I can go back into that church and play the organ, which is something that I do there quite frequently. So I went in there yesterday, and for the first time in 14 weeks was able to play the organ. And the hymn I played is called Dear Lord and Father of Mankind, something I particularly like. And the final few lines in that are perhaps really, really important for what we've been talking about. The last few lines of that hymn are, "Speak through the earthquake, wind and fire, O still small voice of calm." Rather than shouting at each other in our echo chamber or running around in the fog, let's take time to sit down together with each other and in a calm and still way, listen to each other.